Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech, and today I am talking about the recent podcast Dies to Removal and their reaction to the bans in Modern. Now, for individuals on my channel who aren't familiar, they should definitely check out the Mana Source and Teleri in Community College. Those are the two YouTubers that are putting on this current podcast, Dies to Removal. And the reason that I'm talking about them today is I strongly respect both of these YouTubers. They've got some great things to say, but they missed some stuff when talking about the ban list specifically and with regards to Modern. Some of the suggestions they make, I think, would actually be harmful to Modern and to the player base and to the confidence of buyers in the market. So that's what I'm going to do, is disagree with some of their points, and then I'm going to bring up some of their points that I do strongly agree with. I wouldn't be talking about these guys if I didn't strongly respect them, because they're two of the best voices out there for players on YouTube. Let's jump right in. And this question is what really brought me to put together this video. And the question was asked, Modern, is now a good time to get in? And the answer that was given by one of the hosts, I believe it was Tim from Mana Source over there, was no, now is not a good time. Wait 6 months, wait 9 months, wait till fall. And that's a big mistake. Modern is a growing environment. Yes, Modern Masters 2 is going to come out, and the cards for Modern Masters 2 will see a hidden price. But things that aren't included in Modern Masters 2 will see a price gain. And if we look at Modern Masters 1, it increased the popularity of the format, which rose the price of cards across the board for Modern. Modern's an eternal format. It's going to cost a little bit more to get in, but when you've got a deck that is going to be solid for many years to come. Now, the argument has been made that the ban list really destroys the confidence in that when you get really excited about these cards, that you're not going to want to stay in when the cards are banned. Was it right to ban Birthing Pod? And the argument in the podcast was that Birthing Pod should have been banned long ago, before it had gotten super popular, and that now it had really ebbed down in the amount of control that it had in the environment. And I strongly disagree. Birthing Pod was the right ban for now. If you're getting rid of Treasure Cruise and you're getting rid of Dig Through Time, which I'm going to talk about a bit more, you really should get rid of Birthing Pod, because the default in the environment was going to be to fall back on Birthing Pod, and we were going to see a metagame that we were already familiar with. Magic the Gathering is not poker. It is not chess. The cards in the environment change on a continual basis. And that is good for us who are players. We don't want to see the same things winning every week. We want to see some innovation. Yes, it shakes up buyer confidence a little bit, but there's an inverse relationship between buyer confidence and player fun. Buyer confidence is really high when you know that you can buy something and it's going to be worth giant amounts of money forever because it continually goes up. But that is a sign of a stagnant play environment. It's that the same game is going to be played again and again and again. If we see a shakeup in the environment, then it is better for players, more interesting, more fun, more innovative, and the buyers actually have to move around to figure out what cards are going up. Now, that's just the speculators that are hurt there. Those of us who play and enjoy the cards and build decks that we like, as long as the game gets more popular, and it will continue to get more popular, the more people have fun with it, which a shaking environment is good for, then the value of all the cards is going to go up, especially in an eternal format like this. It's more important to bring new players in and shake the environment up than to have this stagnant, boring environment that makes it very tough for new players to get in. There was an argument that the pod decks were really destroyed in resale value, that you couldn't take a pod deck and resell it or turn it into something else very easily, and that's just simply wrong. We got the results of the Modern Pro Tour top 8, and there are decks that have virtually all of the cards from the pod deck without pod there. You can also take these staple cards that have a really high value to them. Noble Hierarch is going through the roof right now, even though there's a threat of a reprint. Siege Rhino, Abrupt Decay, and turn those into another very, very solid deck. The deck that was Pod was not destroyed. It is turned into a mid-range deck, and there's huge value there. Very easy to transfer into another deck. I don't see people that I know who played Pod crying because their deck was destroyed. They're adapting and coming up with another interesting deck. If you want strong buyer confidence, you put together a reserve list. And reserve list hurts players. I'm very glad that there is no reserve list in Modern. We did not see the dominance of Dig Through Time yet in Modern, but it would have been there with the Treasure Cruise banning. If you're going to take out Treasure Cruise, you should take out Dig Through Time. But why did we take out Treasure Cruise? Treasure Cruise at a 1 casting cost, once you ignore that delve on there, is simply too powerful. It took the environment and shrunk it to really fast decks, especially combo decks and burn decks. That is not a sign of a healthy environment. If those decks are dominating across the board, we don't get to mid-range, we don't get to creature combat. A lot of different ideas are being pushed out of the environment. Now, why did they leave Dig Through Time in Legacy? It's the 2 casting cost. It's the fact that it's 2 blue. In Legacy, you have Wastelands, and it's actually pretty tough to get that 2 blue on the board in a lot of different situations. You also have Stifle. Slower decks are going to play Dig Through Time than play Treasure Cruise. The difference here is very, very big in that the environment for Modern just doesn't have a way to keep people off of that 2 blue, where Legacy getting 2 and keeping people off 2 blue is a pretty big part of the game. So Dig Through Time is much less powerful in Legacy than it would have been in Modern. I think it's great to toss these cards. We see a very diverse environment right now in Modern. There's a lot of discussion in that podcast around Bitter Blossom. Why has Bitter Blossom stayed so high after it was removed from the ban list? Number one, personally, I think this is a strong card in Modern. People are just playing it wrong. But that's not why it's staying high in value. This is a casual powerhouse favorite. EDH players love this card. It's great to put this out and get a creature every single turn for the rest of the game, especially when you have 40 life. The value of Bitter Blossom is being determined by the casual market, not by the Modern market. If this becomes a powerhouse in Modern, we'll see it double or triple in price. I'm trying to break it in Modern. Even if it sees a reprint, I will pick up a playset or 2 of these because it is a great, fun card long term. Unbanning cards like this is good for the environment. It shakes things up. People try to innovate with them. There are lots of decks out there that don't need fetch lands. One of the arguments is that the entire Modern environment is dependent on fetch lands right now. And lots of decks get better when you don't take damage. Soul Sisters is a primary example of that. There were some Soul Sisters decks from the Pro Tour that went 6 and 4 or better. This is the type of deck that you can take to an FNM and crush people. It has a great matchup versus Burn. Your robot decks are super powerful, don't use fetches. Yes, if they become too powerful, a card or 2 may be banned from it, but robots is such a powerful deck and a powerful archetype. It's the type that tends to reinvent itself and come back again in a new variety. Robots is doing well in Modern. It's not dominating, but that's even without the artifact lands that are a staple in the Legacy Robots deck. Slippery Boggles, not a deck that needs fetch lands, but I'll talk about Boggles a little bit later. And Bitter Blossom, the biggest mistake I see in people brewing with Bitter Blossom is putting fetch lands and shock lands in the deck. You need the life for Bitter Blossom. You can't kill yourself with cards like fetches and shocks and play Bitter Blossom at the same time. Fetch lands also make budget burn better. We saw 2 burn decks in the top 8. Nothing makes me happier than to play a burn deck at a local event and to have my opponent go fetch shock on turn 1, lightning bolting themselves. It's 1 less lightning bolt that I need to hit them with. Giving individuals fetches at a reasonable price has been very, very good for the Modern environment. Which gets me to the question about Tarmogoyf. I don't think I've got a slide in here about Tarmogoyf. Let me go grab one. The next question that came up in the podcast was, should we ban Tarmogoyf? The professor makes the argument that Tarmogoyf is too expensive. It discourages people from getting into Modern, and when you get really expensive cards, you should ban them to make the format more accessible. I strongly disagree with this. Expensive cards are popular cards. They're cards people want to put into their deck. The answer is never to ban a card simply because it's expensive. If you ban it, something else will take its spot, and you have alienated a giant part of the player base that has those cards. Ban it because it's too powerful. But Tarmogoyf is not too powerful in Modern. The answers are print cards like Scavenging Ooze that combat Tarmogoyf head-to-head. Cards that can be put in that same spot that can beat that card given the opportunity. And reprint the card. Make it more available. Whenever you reprint it, it drops the price some. Yes, the supply on Modern Masters 1 was not enough. There should be a significantly larger print run for Modern Masters 2. But Modern Masters is supplying a growing Modern environment. If the player base for Modern triples and the print run triples for Modern Masters 2, we won't see a lot of price relief. I like the idea of reprinting Tarmogoyf. I would be happy to see it reprinted even in a From the Vault or a event deck or something else that made it accessible, even if that product itself was $70 or $80, because it would allow more people to get in. But I like the Scavenging Ooze option best. Find cards that directly fight against it as a way to deal with extremely powerful but not broken cards in the environment that are also popular. We're at a really interesting time right now in Modern. Burn made 2 of the top 8 spaces at this last Pro Tour. These Burn decks were designed to deal with the number of fetch lands, shock lands, thought seizes that were out there, and even had main deck cards like Skullcrack to beat the Rhinos life gain. When there's a lot of burn in the environment, there's an opportunity for a lot more diversity in fighting against decks like this, and you know that some of the decks that are dominating are too slow. There is actually a pretty good amount of diversity in this environment. Rhinos are not shutting the environment down. I think that they're opening the environment up for a lot of different innovation to come about. Liliana the Veil is also an indicator of whether you have a healthy format or not. When Slippery Bogles and Glistener Elves are the powerhouses and Lily can't be played at all, something is wrong with the environment. Treasure Cruise beats Lily because the massive card advantage from a 1 casting cost of draw 3 shuts down the slower attrition decks entirely. But what's nice about Lily is that she also fights the ridiculous power-up creature strategies where somebody tries to put out 1 creature and sneak it through for 10 or 20 points of damage in 1 or 2 turns. Lily forces you to have a diversity of threats on the board. And I think that it's a good thing. I would rather play an environment where Lily's a good card than one where Slippery Bogle is a good card. Slippery Bogles are the most miserable cards to play against because they don't have the interaction, the back and forth between players, especially given some of the enchantments that you can put on them. I also just want to remind people that there are always budget options out there, and if you can metagame those budget options, you may be able to even do better than the original decks that you were looking at. I would strongly consider Dorans and Scavenging Oozes instead of Tarmogoyf. The ability to shut down your opponent's graveyard so they can't use it as a resource makes Goyfs look terrible. If people are playing a lot of Burn right now, I would avoid Thought Seizes in favors of Duresses or Inquisitions of Kozilek. Don't take the damage, don't make it easy on the Burn deck. And look at cards like Lingering Souls that are bad in those super fast combo environments or Burn environments that we saw that were powered by Treasure Cruise and are significantly better in a long game. I think there's some great options out there right now for brewing in Modern. Rhinos, if you know your opponent is playing them, you can prepare for Rhinos directly by putting other really good strong cards that fit your strategy into the deck. I'm going to be doing a whole video later this week on beating Rhinos, but here's 2 of the suggestions. Look towards Huskwing Griffins and whether there's a way that that might fit into your strategy. Maybe even a Death and Taxes like deck that you could turn into a modern playable deck. Or look towards cards like Skullcrack. Shut down your opponent's life gain and hit them with additional damage. This is a great, powerful card. I think that this is why Burn is doing so well right now, is that it's posed to beat those Rhino decks. The last thing I really want to point out is something that came out of that podcast that I agree with strongly. Is that if you want to get better at Magic, you need to learn from losing. You need to take notes every single time you play. Try to figure out what you could have done better. If you lose, that's a great opportunity for losing. Most losing games are not just about, did I get my land? Most losing games have 2 or 3 different mistakes on each side where there were opportunities to do significantly better. I would even learn from your winning games. What could your opponent have done better to beat you? What could you have done better to close out the game earlier? Taking notes is something that I got from chess and helped me with my chess game a lot. It is essential if you want to play whether Friday Night Magic and win or competitive Magic long term. And this is one of the best tips that came out of that last podcast. I definitely recommend that people should check out the Dies with Removal podcast and the YouTube channels Tolarian and Mana Source that are behind them, because they're both great YouTube channels, even if I disagree with them on some points about what's going on with Modern and how much we should shake things up with the ban list. Thanks. This has been Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech. Thank you to everybody who's out there on Patreon supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate it.